So I've got like a portable, like a case I carry back and forth between here and the university. So I use like a Yeti Pro that hooks into that, or a mixer. I have a mixer in my office too. So
Sweet.
yeah,
You
it
got it.
works
You got
out
it
pretty
working.
well.
You got it working well, man.
Man, learning all this is not the easiest. That's kind of what's taken me a lot of time to. I've had downtime where like I just like you just got to be a student of audio production, and then oh hey yeah, market that and tell people about it too, and come up with
Right.
come up with the brand and figure out what you want to do. So I do a lot of different shows, but anyway, so ladies and gentlemen that are listening, I'm sitting down with Drew Brent. We first met when there was a local nonprofit, River Valley Food for Kids, who we have networked with a few times in the past, was doing an event called Food Stock. And I will tell you that there is one student that we networked with from that event that still comes to the gym. And that was like, what, 3, 4 years ago?
Yeah, I think we met at the studio at Channel, which is
Yeah,
weird.
yeah.
We actually met in Little Rock, but we're both from here.
Yeah, and as the first time I met you,
Right.
I kind of knew who you were. I don't know where we'd run into each other. I'd just seen you around, right?
Same. I mean, forces everywhere. So I mean, I'd seen it.
Yes, it's everywhere, not in our current parking lot.
Right. Exactly.
Across the street, down the alley, in the land we don't own.
Exactly. Right.
So yeah, we're
Wink,
doing.
wink.
We need to do it. I need to do just like a whole pie because I've just like dropped little tidbits. I too have just been. We're trying to initiate a move. We made an offer on a building. It's been accepted. It's a total win-win. Cut our losses so we can, start playing the long game.
Right.
With the gatekeepers.
Oh, please.
Yes.
That
We
phrase.
are the gatekeepers
That
of society.
phrase just irks me.
Okay, so and then there was a casino. So that's what we're going to talk about. So Drew, you have been involved. You ran for city council
2 years ago, 3 years ago, yeah.
but so like why I brought up how we met. Like you've been in the news media. You've been involved in reporting, journalism on different levels. And you've also been involved in local politics, and you kind of have been a commentator on issues going on. And I'm like next level with this stuff. I think Ozark season 2 was here to soften our market, okay? Because it's all about a casino if you haven't seen it. But anyway, there's been this fight in our community about this casino between these two groups, mainly the Pope County majority and the Citizens for a Better Pope County or whatever. And what there is currently, how many casinos in the state? Do you know?
Currently, there's 3. Well, yes, currently there's 3. I mean, you've got the one. Actually, there's 2 operating casinos right now. There's the one up in Southland, which is the Northeast Arkansas, and that was that they had the dog track for the long time, and they just expanded their gaming. And then Oaklawn expanded their gaming, and then Jefferson County was granted a license. Their casino's under construction.
That's what I've been following a little bit on that.
And so there's 2 operating casinos in the state right now.
And so they were going to issue how many more licenses for our state when the amendment passed? Are you familiar with that?
There was actually no casino gaming at all before Amendment 100 was passed. So, and that's what's interesting to make the differentiation. Southland and Oaklawn were classified as hosts for games of skill or games of chance, and you can use air quotes in that.
Yeah.
You could place the bets on the ponies or the dogs, but as far as actually blackjack, poker, things like that, slot machines.
What do you like? It's just sidetrack. Nobody ever talks about this. Like, do you own a dog? Because I love my dog, and I think
love
that
my
racing
dog.
dogs is kind of cruel, dude.
I was also a horse guy too. When I was younger, we broke horses for livestock and rodeos and that sort of thing, which is kind of a messed up process in of itself. So I mean, I'm not just a real big fan either way, but
Yeah, because I've always like, with all the noise people make on like SeaWorld, and I'm like, okay, that dolphin's got a bigger brain than me, bigger prefrontal cortex. Maybe we should.
right, maybe we should.
We shouldn't give them dolphins annex and make them do tricks for us, or maybe we should. I don't know, but I definitely like it raises some issues for me. I'm not like I don't eat meat because of it all, But I'm
Right.
just like, based off what I've learned about dolphins and whales, I'm like, why do you keep that in a swimming pool?
Well, I mean, and if it, to me, I don't think I would have as much of a problem with it if I didn't know all. If you've seen all the exposés on places like SeaWorld and these aquariums, I mean, you're a big fish living in a literal small pond. It's just
The parking is large. That's the most recent thing I've seen. The parking area for SeaWorld is like X number times larger than the whale pool.
right. It's
Anyway.
that's a rabbit hole, but
But yeah, but people are still racing dogs and horses here in our state.
that's their moral argument.
And
I mean,
it's and it's kind of like us having alcohol at every restaurant. It's almost like I almost think that's a workaround. Is that what you were basically saying?
yes. I mean, sort of. I mean, when it came to those two operations, I mean, you couldn't have things like sports betting, like on football games, basketball games, but you could place a bet on a horse or you could place a bet on a dog. And there was a fine line that you had to really walk so that you were in compliance with the law. So when Amendment 100 was passed, the folks at Southland and the folks at Oaklawn were going insane because that was the move that they needed to radically expand their business.
Do you think they were behind lobbying in Little Rock to get that done, or what do you think?
I think there's a lot of lobbying that was done in Little Rock. I mean, when you look at the passage, the grand scheme of things as it pertains to the passage of Amendment 100, which, by the way, for the folks who may not be familiar, Amendment 100 is the casino amendment. Things like new infrastructure, the governor's road improvement bill. A lot of funding is going to come from the new gaming receipts off of this. Let the talking points be what they are. But there were a lot of folks in Little Rock who publicly had to say that we weren't necessarily for all this, who were totally pulling for this. The gaming lobbyists were, of course, for this. Interestingly enough, though, there were several casinos who were not for this, because specifically in Oklahoma.
Like the Roland Casino, or
of course.
Is it,
yeah, because now if you've got one in Russellville.
Oh, it's like the Blackwell thing. Apparently, the leading opposition to Pope County being wet is Conway County that Morrilton and Blackwell and everything's in. So you got to drive. You can't get it down the street. You got to drive 20 minutes. And like everybody I talk to, when they start telling me this, I mean, I don't drink a whole lot, like hardly at all.
Right.
And when I do, it's usually with dinner or something. But they're like, if I was just driving straight back home, I wouldn't drink on the way. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But it's 30 minutes, like I'm going to crack a couple open.
And that really says a little bit more about the character than anything else.
I know. But I'm like, okay, I think because of that arrangement, we are encouraging people to drive distances and get beverages, whether they drink them or not. I mean, I think like I see wrecks and people making poor lane changes every day when I drive. It's a 25-minute commute. It's not bad, but there's the week in, week out, I'm noticing things on the commute,
Well, I mean, and there's got to be some kind of, it's appalling and even astounding to me that we have outlawed a legal product that people can still buy somewhere else, bring it back here and consume, and yet we're not going to receive any kind of tax money off of that. We're not going to receive any kind of economic benefit from that. There's no, prohibition has been over for a century. Why on earth are we still, hooked up with this antiquated way of thinking?
Conway business owners get their alcohol a lot of times from Arca Valley and Blackwell, one of the liquor stores there, right? And it's just like, but it's like when we do go to make a move to a wet county, is that not also, do you think, going to negatively impact some of the restaurants that are thriving exclusive because that's the only place in town you can go get a beverage?
I was the general manager of Brick Oven for a while.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And I will tell you that I was absolutely 100% for wet. I wanted this desperately. And we sold beer while I was the general manager there, and I think they still do. We needed this. And the reason that we needed it was there was an opportunity then for us to expand our business. Expand our business maybe to a full-scale bar if we wanted to. If you wanted a Crown and Coke, you could have that with your meal. There was a lot of opportunities that you could have there. And something else that you may not know is that restaurant owners who serve beer in this town are at a very, very high disadvantage because you cannot have it delivered.
You have to go get it.
You have to go get it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was in the $2,000 to $3,000 a month range to purchase the beer, to go and get it, travel, all coming out of store. So making the county wet would actually ease some of the burden for the folks who are serving that. you have the opportunity to expand. But then here's the other thing. The people who are going out to eat and getting their drinks and that sort of thing, typically, I mean, you're seeing a lot of economic leakage to Conway or Fort Smith, Fayetteville, Little Rock. It's estimated up to 30% of our economy goes to one of those 4 places. Make the freaking county wet. You know, if you can even get 5 to 7% of that back, the profit margin for every single alcohol-serving restaurant in town goes up exponentially just because now you've got Russellville money staying in Russellville. It behooves these folks to support the wet issue.
I had one of Cora's family members, for example, who drinks, like not like all the time or anything, but she has nothing against it. Voted against when it came up on the last ballot because of the propaganda that was out.
Yeah.
We didn't even come here to talk about alcohol today, but
But propaganda is a great thing to talk about
Yeah,
because
that's
it's a whole freaking casino argument right there.
There were billboards when that was going around all up and down the river valley on I-40, and it's just like I was seeing them, and it's an active campaign by people, and it's no different than my attitudes and your attitudes. I'm sure of like wanting retribution for like what your convictions are. You know what I'm saying? So like I kind of empathize with people, but it's just how you go about it, you know. And I do not empathize with corruption in any way. But it's like, you know, people saying like, I'm more like, let's explore these arguments like, we had a situation of where you can go have a drink with dinner, and after having drink at dinner, you drive home.
Right.
You know, or you go drive to get it, and maybe you drink on the way home, maybe you don't. Either way,
I would hope you don't. But
either way, you're transporting. There's all these implications, tax implications, economic arguments, and there are people, and I guess it's you could say people typically refer to them as the old guard or.
The gatekeepers.
The gatekeepers. I heard somebody call this one particular person who's apparently suing the city right now an old guard, old money.
Yes.
It's typically these people, and it's typically generational, right? I mean, would you agree with that? Well, I guess there. I mean, do you see any people our age who are like anti-alcohol, anti-cannabis,
some. I don't think. You know, to be honest, I think the whole moral argument with the old guard is a bit disingenuous, and I'm going to tell you why. Because there are some of those folks who 100% believe that. They really do. But a lot of the folks who are the most public about that are the ones who have business interests that this would absolutely adversely affect. All right, let's just call the spade. Some of these old guard folks, as you refer to them, who have come out against this from a moralistic perspective, they do not care if a casino comes here one way or the other. What they care about is having to raise their wages. All right, that's what they care about. So, for example, if you are a large business owner in this area, and there's a $250 million investment from a casino resort coming in, and it's in this contract right now that's staring at me back in the face. It says there will be a minimum wage of $13 an hour for the lowest paid employee. $13 an hour.
And that's a waitress, right? Did I see that?
I'm not sure, but I think so. I think that's offset by some tips. So I mean, I'm not entirely.
I saw
sure.
something about waitresses, but
Right.
it seemed like not the stereotypical setup around here of what most businesses are doing in terms of allowing their servers to split tips or paying a lower than minimum wage,
$2.75 plus tips, kind of a thing. So they will come out, and this will be their argument. This is a tax on poor people. Poor people are going to come to this place for an opportunity to get out of poverty, and they're going to lose their homes, their jobs, and not feed their kids. There are two big problems with that. All right. The first one is that's completely and totally false. People who are making bad decisions with their money right now in Polk County will continue to make bad decisions with their money wherever they freaking go. That's how this works. Opening up a casino provides another avenue for the same people who are making bad financial decisions to still make bad financial decisions. But the one that I have the biggest problem with is that if you come at this from a moral argument, then you have to have a counter plan. It is immoral for government officials to look at a situation like what Pope County is in right now, where there is 3% unemployment. It's one of the lowest unemployment rates in the entire state. with nearly a 20% poverty rate, which is one of the highest poverty rates in the state. There is a huge disconnect there. And if you are opposing this because you don't want to have to competitively raise your wages, you don't get to talk about the immorality.
And you're
of the poor
trying to
people.
keep potentially higher paying jobs out
Exactly.
actively.
That's immoral. That's wrong.
So, not to go out of order on topics. I assume most people listening to this, unless you're outside of our little niche, but people listening to this locally will kind of know. But the division on this between the city and the county. You know what I'm saying? Because here's kind of where we were, and I'll let you go into it more in detail, but county opposition, quorum courts all opposed, county judges seems to be leading the opposition, but he did make this random post like 5 months ago. He's like, you guys should look into Cherokee. Which is
Womp, womp. Yeah.
But apparently some upstairs backroom sort of deals were made by members of the quorum court is what is swirling around the rumor mill. And then the whole time, another thing that just some sources I have and commentators on the issue have said that the county played the city out of the deal in some way, or the city played themselves out of the deal.
That's a little more accurate.
Yes, but if you take into account that it's possible that, something went down in the last week, right? Because here's the thing. Here's what I was told today. I was told that the Gaming Commission let the quorum court know that if they didn't make a choice, it was going to be Gulfside. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I haven't been able to verify that, but I heard it from two different sources.
I haven't heard that. I can tell you that I feel like Cherokee was pretty well locked up.
Do you think they have the best proposal?
I don't want to speak to that specifically because I don't know that we know all of the proposal. I think we know the high points.
I also was told that the quorum court voted on a contract that they had never seen.
I think that there are some officials who are looking into that, but I think that's a little preposterous, and I'm going to tell you why I think that's preposterous. There were too many leaks about this contract, about this proposal, that came from several different people that make me think that the quorum court had never seen it. And the reason that I feel that way is because there is a lot of information, and then you can see it on the video here, but I'm holding the contract in my hand. They presented this to members of the public before they presented it to the quorum court last night, like during the meeting. A lot of this information was being discussed on social media by higher ups. It was being, I think, intentionally leaked, to be honest with you, so that people could kind of get the ball rolling. And then Cherokee releases their proposal on Monday. I think if the quorum court didn't see it, it was because they didn't freaking read it.
Yes.
I mean, to me, I think they would have had to have known. There's too much at stake. They would have had to have been able to see it, especially when, a particular attorney stands up last night and says that the entire quorum court's now going to be under investigation for some illegal activity, which is more or less a power play from the anti-casino crowd from where I sit.
If the quorum court members had a meeting that was at a park and 7 of them were there, that is illegal and they should be deposed.
Of course,
legally speaking.
Of course they should. But let's also talk about politics for a minute. That happens all the time.
Here's the thing. I've been telling people this. Yes, I'm pro casino, but I'm anti-corruption.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's also going to be what blows this issue up is people not, crossing their I's and dotting their T's, or vice versa, so to speak.
Right.
Is doing it that way. It's just why open up there being any avenue? And I know one of the JPs abstained. And 3 voted against, and then
it was an 8-4 vote.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't discredit or even condemn Blake Tarpley for abstaining, and the reason I don't is because he's in the banking industry. He is going to deal with this at some point. He abstained because of a conflict of interest. I appreciated that he said so publicly. So I'm pretty.
Any
cool
idea
with that.
of just banking's a conflict of interest, or do you know?
Well, I don't know that there is specific dealings with the bank right now. I just know that it is safe to assume that if you have a $250 million investment coming into the city and to the county. If you are in the banking industry, you're going to see some of that at some point. It's going to happen. So I can't speak to the specifics
That
of
makes
that.
sense. That makes sense.
So, I mean, I understand that. To me, here's what's really interesting. The people who talk about the backroom dealings or the things in the park, that's unverified. What is verified is that I believe the law reads this way, and I could be wrong. If you have two elected officials who sit on the same governing body, three or more governing officials on the same governing body, and they are in public or they are discussing any business, that should technically be known as a public meeting. All right. I'll give you a great example of what an illegal activity was. There was an illegal activity that was done right in front of our eyes Monday night when the city council huddles together and has a conversation with the mics off.
Yeah,
in front
that
of
keeps
people.
going in. Why are they doing
That's
that?
still, well, even if they're not speaking to the public, this is this little circle. That's technically an illegal meeting. So my guess is from the pro-casino crowd, you can make the argument that several illegal meetings happened. I don't think anything's going to come of it, to be completely honest with you. Even if there is so much of an inkling of a little bit of corruption, nothing's coming from it. And the biggest reason, this is constitutional. It's constitutional. This is a law. The Racing Commission shall issue a license. And the quorum court made their decision on which applicant it was going to be. Gulfside may sue, but I doubt very seriously it's going to go anywhere. To me, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors.
I get that too, and man, it's just my concern that yes, the quorum court made the decision, but if there are implications to that of like the people that voted yes were the people at this said meeting, and I've seen people commenting on that all over the place in different groups, and I talked with who I was telling you I spoke with last night. He said the same thing, and I mean he's a journalism guy, you know.
Yes, he is.
but I don't think, man. I think there is a lot of smoke and mirrors right now. I think there's some variables here that we're hitting on that. You seen that meme where it's like the dude, he's like looks like he's flipping the guy off, but you like look at it from the other side, it's three fingers. I think we're seeing some of that right
I think
now.
you probably are. And what's the easiest way to throw off a scent on anything you're trying to do in politics? The easiest way to do that is provide any implication of impropriety anytime. The Democrats and the Republicans nationally do it all the time to throw off the scent of whatever it is that you're doing. So the anti-casino crowd, they're going to tell you that the quorum court folks, they were absolutely, totally involved and had money backroom in the casino. That's what they're going to tell you to do. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I don't have any evidence of that. Now, I would say this from a purely journalistic perspective. It is absurd to believe that there wasn't some private conversations that were had because that's how politics work. If you want to know how the city works, if you want to know how the county works, and you want to know where all the biggest decisions are made, Brian, go to Old South at 6:30 every morning, and you'll watch the politics happen. Or go to Hardee's,
Stobies.
All of these three main places are where all the political dealings occur, and they happen right in front of you. It's the same way in Washington. There's a very notable steakhouse and a barbecue, seafood place right there in Washington. Every representative, every senator, they go in, they make these deals. It happens all the time. Is there some potential impropriety? I don't want to say that, but probably.
Because there always is.
Maybe not necessarily with this issue, but there's always something to sniff around in. You know, there's always something to sniff around in. To me, at this point, if they can prove that, then I would love to see it, and then I would love to move forward from that. But if this is,
it's kind of one of those things. It's like you got to put up or shut up on it. You know?
Right.
It's like there needs to be the proof, or we need to move on.
And the biggest issue that they're going to have is that public opinion changed on this issue. It did. It shifted.
Do you think that was because of the propaganda effort? Is the people that's the perception I got? Is the people that voted before did not know? Like I was saying, my wife's aunt being duped into voting against alcohol being legal, and she's like, "Wait a second, what did I do?"
I've had more people tell me I didn't know what I was voting for. I mean, and I fault the pro casino crowd. I fault the actual operators themselves. If they had marketed this thing the way that it has been marketed post-election, pre-election, this thing would have passed with flying colors. And by the way, it did in the state. It just didn't in Polk County. And so we would not have this conversation. And I dare say this, if it had been done this way, Randy Horton would still be mayor. 100% Randy Horton would still be mayor.
What, speaking of Horton and who was it? Judge Gibson. They both issued some support or showed some support for Gulfside.
Yes.
Gulfside is now in a petition process. Apparently, has a hearing set up on like Thursday or something, like
Thursday.
tomorrow, right?
Yeah, it's tomorrow. As of this recording, it's tomorrow.
So, what I heard is that, like they, again, we mentioned this earlier, but that the Gaming Commission sort of tipped off Russellville officials that, like, hey, Gulfside's going to win their appeal, so you have to make a decision now. And that was the rush. I heard that again from a couple of sources. I don't know if that's the case or not. I'm sure that will maybe come out tomorrow. Maybe not, but it's like, people are also talking about this, like potential to end up with 2 casinos. I don't see that happening, but I've seen multiple people say that.
That's unconstitutional. That won't happen.
Okay, so 2 licenses can't be granted in the same county.
There's going to be 4 licenses issued total in the state of Arkansas, 1 for each county.
So what if it comes down to this, and this could be what people are saying? We have chosen Cherokee officially, correct?
Right.
What if Gulfside wins their appeal tomorrow?
Gulfside sues, and Gulfside loses.
You think they lose?
Yeah, I do. I mean, here's. Can I take you on a timeline?
Please. This is great. I want to get as much of this together because we kind of are skipping around on topics, but as much of a narrative as we can form with this.
Sure.
For particularly too with people that are listening that aren't here local, right?
Sure.
So yeah, go ahead.
Let's talk about this from the beginning, and kind of go through it. July of 2018, the Quorum Court issues a resolution that says basically they were not for a casino. It's right after...
Unanimous, was it not? Or no, there was like one person.
It was a unanimous vote at the time. It was a unanimous vote in July. Okay. Now, that's a unanimous public vote. There were people on the Quorum Court at that time who were supporters. But for political reasons, and they knew what the propaganda machine was going to do, they had to save face at that time. Okay. The next city council meeting in August, the city does the same thing. The city says, we have this resolution. We don't want to do this without, I think the resolution actually read that they weren't going to make any kind of move or they wouldn't let the mayor authorize anything without council approval. Now, little civics lesson. Ordinance is law. Resolution is a suggestion. All right? Mm-hmm. So these 2 resolutions that were written amounted to exactly jack squat. Okay? So then you've got the whole propaganda for the election in November. And you've got, at the same time, you've got Richard Harris, Randy Horton, and Freddie Harris running for the mayoral race in Russellville. And Richard Harris is backed by a very specific group of people. Okay? Mm-hmm. Not to get too specific, but he is backed by a very specific group of people. Runs on one platform, no casino. We are not going to, matter of fact, he said, we're not going to gamble with Russellville's future. All right? This all ties in here in a few minutes. The state passes Amendment 100, Issue 4. It fails in Polk County. That's important because Citizens for a Better Polk County got an ordinance passed, or I guess I don't even know, maybe a referendum, I think might be the more proper term, that said if this passes, the way that the amendment passed, then the citizens of Polk County would have an opportunity to vote for the operator.
Yes.
Okay, so that was unconstitutional from the very beginning because you cannot add a roadblock to a state amendment. You can't do it. So that's why the local ordinance thing was, why people were so confused as to whether or not we're going to vote, as to whether we can or can't vote. Was this rush? Did the Quorum Court skip something? They passed an unconstitutional law, essentially. So basically they ignored it. Right? They ignored it when they passed this. Okay, now timeline. Jim Ed Gibson was the current Polk County judge right before Ben Cross took over in January. He was elected back in May in a special election, I think. He beat Sid Gray. Randy Horton had just been defeated by Richard Harris in the runoff. Horton, writing a letter of support, was basically just supporting Jim Ed Gibson because at the time, nobody really knew where the casino was going to go. But if it was going to come to the city of Russellville, he wanted a letter on file that said, yes, I support this. Okay. But the letter that Horton wrote was essentially meaningless. The big one was from Gibson. Now, this is a narrative that I can put together from off-the-record sources when I was still with the Courier. The way this was supposed to play out was that Jim Ed Gibson was going to write this letter in support of Gulfside. The Racing Commission was going to adopt their rules, I think, sometime in January, maybe March. I'm not real sure. But I know that in that first 3 months, they were going to adopt their rules. Gulfside already had the application. The casino was in because they had the letter of support in hand. They had met the constitutional requirements. Because the rules had not been established by the Racing Commission, and because Jim Ed Gibson was technically a lame duck judge, that letter of support came into question as to whether or not it was actually valid. That's the basis of Gulfside's argument.
What is your opinion on that? Just real quick. I mean, just as a constituent.
To me, technically, Gulfside has a point in that they did meet the requirements of Amendment 100 because the way the amendment was written, it went into effect in November. However, the application process did not start until after, I think, January 1. So if you don't know what the rules are really going to be, then you really don't know how to play the game. I think Jim Ed Gibson had good intentions with this because his thought process was, and I believe this is an off-the-record conversation I had, the idea was for Jim Ed Gibson to fall on the sword right off into the sunset, and then Ben gets to say, you know what, I didn't do this, but this is what we've inherited, this is what we're going to do, hey, here's your new county jail that I promised. But instead, what happened was when people saw that the letter of support had been written, they went ballistic. And in an effort to save political face, our officials said, oh, this is absolutely ludicrous. This is craziness. How could the outgoing mayor? They must have been paid off. There's the first implication of impropriety.
I heard that he was offered a job working in public relations or something like that, $100,000 plus a year salary working for Gulfside if they came here. And I'm sure that's right. Rumor mill type
Sure.
shit,
Well, have you met Jim Ed Gibson? He's not going to be public relations.
Yeah, or whatever. Just like basically like gets a nice little salary for his involvement.
Every time I called Jim Ed for an interview when I was at the Courier, it was always the same. Hello? Yeah. Okay. That was it.
One of his
yes or no question.
One of his nephews trains at the gym.
He's a cool guy, but he's not a public relations guy. He was always cordial, but he wasn't going to get a public relations gig. To me, this is the thing. I got in on this casino thing from a reporter standpoint at the beginning, and I know all of the players involved. Being completely objective, and this is not a personal view. This is an objective journalistic point of view. From that side of it, there was no impropriety. Because here's what Randy Horton and Jim Ed Gibson knew. They knew that the way that amendment read, this was coming. It was going to happen, one way or the other. And that big spiel that Ben Cross put out last night on the Quorum Court, when they actually passed this.
Right, can you paraphrase that real quick? Because I heard he went off on a little bit of a rant. I did not. I didn't follow. I was I was just talking with people all night last night, and doing some reading online. But I was at the gym until 8:00, teaching classes, running my business, and stuff like that. The one that the city won't let me grow.
Right. I can't wait to get into that.
Yeah.
It sucks sometimes a lot. To paraphrase what Ben Cross said, he has this entire spiel about why the county made their selection that they did. And really where it boiled down to was, he said, if we knew this was coming, then we wanted to make the pick. And actually, Caleb Moore said this. We wanted some kind of option. Either, and actually it kind of backs up what you said about Gulfside, because I believe there was a comment made that was either you guys are going to make this choice or the state is going to tell you which one's coming in. That was the whole idea. That was the whole big spiel that they put out. It's like, well, we're going to take back control. If this thing's coming, we're going to have some control over it. That's complete and total garbage. They were in discussions the entire time, which, by the way, those discussions are legal. They are wise. It is wise to have discussions with all of the operators that potentially could come into your area so that you know what kind of economic impact they're going to have. And if you're playing them against one another, then perhaps you can get a better deal for your people.
I agree.
And,
I mean, I want them to be doing that.
Right.
And here's another question. I mean, just do you think that's going on right now? Or, I mean, because I saw Hard Rock early on, a few days ago, they were saying, you know, we've been asked to resubmit another proposal, but like this hasn't been the greatest process for us, so I don't know if we're going to do that. Can Hard Rock still submit another proposal, or is it done?
I think they could. From a legal perspective,
it's a moot point.
I don't think they would. I mean, the impression that I get from those folks is that they're basically just going to, kind of leave this one be. The fact of the matter is Hard Rock came in too late. If Hard Rock, if they had come in before the election, they'd have won. I mean, it would have been absolutely no discussion. When Hard Rock entering this discussion changed public opinion.
Oh yeah, and that's kind of the
100%.
tragedy, honestly.
It was
everybody wants that brand. I feel like.
But I'll be honest with you. To me, they as a franchise and not a true Hard Rock brand. I mean,
that's a good point.
I think they could provide some name value. I don't know that they could provide the infrastructure, and I don't know that they could provide the amenities that the Legends Group can.
Bro, all I know is that Widespread Panic plays at Hard Rocks. Okay, that's where I got those 3 posters. But it is. It's just everybody hears Hard Rock, and they're like, oh.
They know Hard Rock. Hard Rock is easily identifiable. It's sort of like people talking about having a Red Lobster here, and if you told people that a Red Lobster was coming, they would absolutely lose their minds. But if you do a kind of hole-in-the-wall seafood place that's better than Red Lobster, people are still going to wish that they had the Red Lobster because that name carries
Isn't that
more value.
strange?
It's strange, but it's true. I think that's the same with the Legends Group right now. I think that's absolutely the same because, I mean, look, even if you are uncomfortable with the idea that it's not Hard Rock, look at the backing. The Cherokee Nation, and then on top of that, the Jerry Jones Group. A lot of Dallas Cowboy fans around here. If you don't think that there won't be at least a star somewhere on this place, you're kidding yourself. I mean, it's got an Arkansas tie to it now with the Jones Group.
Yes.
It's got a River Valley tie because the Jones Group has done business in the River Valley for a long time. They've got more of a vested interest than anybody else would have, in my opinion. So, yes, while Gulfside originally got those letters of support, they didn't get them from the Quorum Court. They didn't have the public outcry.
Did it default to the Quorum Court just because Cross was unwilling? Didn't it? But was it originally it's got to be the judge, but then people found out it could be a majority of the Quorum Court?
It was already written in the amendment. The amendment always said it had to be the county judge or the Quorum Court.
Okay, that's
always
good
said
clarification.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is going to happen now? I mean, what do you think? I mean, here's where we're sitting. It's going to be the Legends more than likely, unless some catastrophe or the opposition to the casino is able to. I've already seen arguments at I guess it's a husband and wife duo out there. That one girl that argued with Nathan on something.
Yes, Anna Sturritz is her name.
Sturritz, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've already seen some quotes they're putting out and stuff. What do you think? Is it going to be just like, is the money going to trump all the local bickering and they're going to get in and nothing's going to stop them? We're past the threshold of all of the holdups. Or do you think it's just going to be more turbulence?
Try to tell these people that just got told that they were going to get a 5,000-seat venue in a water park that they're not going to get it now.
Okay, so here's on the water park issue. A lot of people are worried that this may be like a aquatic center 2.0. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, what would you say about that? Like, have you seen any of the construction proposals?
Not officially of the proposals. I've seen, their ideas, and I've heard about as much as anybody else has, with the exception that we knew it a little bit sooner. I don't think, and I will give Ben Cross this credit, I don't think he negotiated a bad deal. I don't think he can afford politically to allow this to be anything but excellent.
Do you think this will cost him the next election, or do you think that the pro-casino crowd and the anti-casino crowd are both going to be against him now?
I don't think so. I think if anything costs Ben Cross the next election, it was the omission of the city of Russellville to the payouts.
Well, go ahead and hit on that, because that's the biggest thing that I'm concerned about moving forward.
So it's listed as, and I'm looking at the actual agreement between the operator and the quorum court. Section B, it's called an economic development fee. It's $38,800,000 to different places in the county. And if you break it down, and it's available online, $27.6 million goes to the county, and then the next thing you see is $3.36 million to Pottsville. And then you see $3.5 million to Atkins, which, by the way, for Pottsville, Atkins, Dover, London, and Hector, they are jumping for joy right now, because these are payouts of operating budgets. The operating budget for the city of Russellville is just over $12 million a year, and the city of Russellville got left out. Ben Cross last night said that part of the reason for that was that the $27 million is going into a new jail, into new medical and
we want the money plus all that.
Right. Well, this is his take, and I will tell you why I think it's horse crap in just a minute. But his take was, well, Russellville's our biggest customer, and so we needed to make sure that we were taking care. Look, the reason that Russellville got left out is a little petty, but it's also a little true. Richard Harris, as the mayor of Russellville, has been staunchly opposed to any conversation about this.
And him at the gaming commission on that, I know you saw that, where he was just basically just talking down on anybody. With Mayor Horton, Jim Ed Gibson, just like the previous people that had given the green light on their way out or something. Like, he was talking like you gave the backstory of it doesn't matter about the mayor writing that one sentence, because ultimately the mayor's not make the call.
No, he doesn't. He was just backing up Jim Ed. But here's the thing about Richard Harris before we get into this, all right? And I have not ever said what I'm about to say publicly, so here you go. Richard Harris has always been a very cordial person to me. Richard Harris we've always been able to have conversations. When I hosted the debate for the Courier back in November, he was very, very polite, very well spoken.
He's a Sunday school teacher.
But Richard Harris is bad for the city of Russellville.
Agreed.
Richard Harris is a bit of a laughingstock when it comes to being the mayor of Russellville. And Richard Harris and Ben Cross are the two reasons why the city of Russellville is going to miss these kinds of economic budgetary payouts, by the way, every year. Every year. And the reason why we're missing these payouts is because Richard Harris consistently said, I'm not going to have these negotiations. Now, sure, he had conversations, but they knew he was against it. So then they put together this I'm trying not to swear. They put together this circus on Monday night. It's a special called meeting. Depending on when you listen to this, the city council was called for a special called meeting on Monday night. And the sole reason that they were called for that special called meeting was so that Richard Harris and the city council could say that they were open to casino negotiations with operators when the freaking letter had already been written. The point is,
that's groveling.
Yesterday, was it yesterday? It was Monday. Up until Monday, when this letter was still being put together, the city of Russellville was not only cut out, but they weren't going to be able to be annexed. Ben Cross said that was a rumor, that wasn't true. It was. It was 100% true. Until the city gave some kind of support, they were screwed. I don't necessarily fault Ben Cross for that because of Harris. I do fault him for that because it is still his constituency. in Russellville. And by the way, it's his biggest voting base. So I believe that the reason that the city will be able to annex is because Ben wants to be able to save face come election year. But the sole reason why the city of Russellville is missing $12 million every year is because Richard Harris did this. Richard Harris should have been at the table. Richard Harris should have been helping negotiate.
I mean, if he had the best interest, he would. It's like you mentioned earlier with Cross. It's like he can really kind of get by without it looking like it's all on him. In my view, as somebody that's, I'm like, dude, I get what you're up against because I have seen the shift in local opinion, as everyone has. It's undeniable. And then there's the surveys that went around, those overwhelmingly in support in number wise, more so than anything we had seen previously on. And really, people coming out of the woodwork. Do you remember the number of voters that voted in the mayoral election by chance?
In the runoff, it was small. In the general, it was your average midterm vote. It wasn't much higher. But I don't really remember the numbers. I remember thinking it was a little smaller than I thought it would have been.
That's apparently one thing that's keeping alcohol out is we have to have 38% of all registered voters.
Yeah. Now, and that's an antiquated law, and I don't remember who wrote it.
Came up in 94, 90s, early 2000s, something like that.
Yeah, so. It's antiquated, and that can be fixed at some point, but I can promise you this, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's 100% coming. And that sentence right there is the most frustrating thing about the mayor. I am a former reporter who is a political activist now and told people a month ago that Cherokee was coming and that the letter was coming because we pretty much had an inkling. It may not have been a month, but it was way before Monday. So if I knew that because the leagues are coming out, then the mayor freaking knew it. So if you know that it's coming and you know that this is $250 million of investments, and that's just the resort. You think about the things that now come with that. If you have got 1 million more people coming through every single month, and guess what? Now that Red Lobster is a little more interested.
Okay, let's hit on that because people are using that. I'm gonna pull something up here, but people are using that. People coming here are gonna ruin our infrastructure, and they're not even gonna spend. I'll just paraphrase this. People are saying that people are not gonna spend money in our town. Mm-hmm. They're gonna go spend all their money at the casino.
Sure,
and that really the tourism that comes here. Like, they're not going to stay in our hotels. They're not going to, that it won't pour back into the city other than because they're going to eat at the restaurants and the casino and all of this. What are your thoughts on that? Because that is a lot of the people making the moral argument are also making an economic argument, and that is it.
You ever been to Branson?
Yeah, just the other day.
Here's the thing. You go for a specific reason, and then you go to other places. That's generally how you do it.
So we should have more. It should bring more stuff along with it theoretically.
It's kind of, yes, of course.
Go-karts, putt.
Now you have a reason to invest in Russellville. And think about it. Before last night, you didn't. Last night you didn't have any reason, unless you were ConAgra, to invest in the city simply because there was nothing to bring people here. Now, if your hardcore gambling folks are probably not going to spend that money in Russellville, but your people like me, who are going to the casino, not necessarily to gamble. I'm probably going to put $10 in a slot machine, and then I'm going to go watch the concert that I'm coming to see.
Well, and I think a lot of people going to concerts, like, man, I've been to a couple of concerts at casinos recently. One at DC at the MGM there, and then one at Vegas at the MGM there. We didn't stay at the MGM.
No,
we stayed across the bridge or across town at a local, just something cheaper or just something that was like more centrally located. And I so like in my mind when I heard that, I was like, yeah, that's not all the
I don't believe that because to me this resort thing is not the end; it's the beginning. Until last night, you didn't have a reason to invest money into this. And by the way, for folks like you it makes the city of Russellville is going to have to make it a lot easier to invest because now there's going to be a lot of interest, or they're all going to be completely out of office. But we can hit on that here in a few minutes. You have a reason to invest now if you are a place like, a Dick's Sporting Goods. If you are a place like, I like to say Red Lobster because that's the one that everybody talks about. But to be honest with you, I'm not sure that it would do great here.
I know. Red Lobster was really cool about 10 years ago.
Right, but I don't go there anymore. No, I like real seafood if I'm going to eat there. Point being, though, these places now have a reason to come because there's going to be more traffic. I am a restaurant general manager. I won't say where, but I am a restaurant general manager now. I am stoked about this.
Do you think so? I know that you have some political aspirations. Do you have any aspirations to try and seek any sort of a position at the casino in terms of employment?
No.
Is that a motivating factor for you?
No. I mean, I would always listen to take care of my family. I'm open to pretty much any conversation that's legal, because I've got a wife and a family. But I'm not actively seeking that. I'm really happy at the place that I'm in. To me, my motivation is to do good for people. And I know that sounds really self-righteous, and it probably is a little bit. I don't have to win a public office to serve the community. And I don't have to work at the biggest place in town to serve the community.
You don't have to run a nonprofit.
No, you just have to be willing to speak up, and you have to be willing to dig in. And I am able to do that in the place that I'm in. Now, that being said, if I got a call back from Channel 7 today that said, hey, you know what, $85,000, you're back on TV. Yeah, I'm probably listening to that because that's more money than I'm making right now. Every decision that I make is for my wife and my little girl. That's it. But there are people who are looking at this casino and resort as an opportunity. They are looking at this as a way to, maybe expand their economic portfolio. I mean, there are so many people. There are so many people who are working in this county right now who are working 1, 2, 3 jobs to try to put food on the table for their families because they cannot afford to move and they cannot get a higher paying job elsewhere, who are looking at this thing and saying, $13 an hour is going to be $2 or $3 more that I'm currently making at the lower level.
I think that we have so many young adults that come here for college. I mean, we have the 3rd largest university in the state, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. That those will be like the hospitality positions and ways that I've seen, I don't know about the Legends package, but ways I've seen some of the other operators are talking about interacting with the local university. It's like we need to provide more, like a server job that's not going to put you in poverty. I mean, even I work a second job. And like I was talking this morning, a guy I work with who's like 60 years old. Mm-hmm. Is paying back student loans still. Now, he didn't get his master's and stuff till much later in life, but it's like, I was just telling him, I'm like, yeah, like when I get my check, I'm just like, student loan. And just throw the entire salary pretty much on a student loan. And then, meanwhile, because we do well at our other business, the government is taking about 38% once you get down to federal, state taxes, all my local taxes, payroll taxes, all of the different things that we have to do just to operate. And then the red flags that are up that won't allow us, that basically have a ceiling.
If you want to own a local business and not have to pay taxes, just don't do well.
Yeah, which, like we did, I mean, for lack of a better way of putting it, like we hid our successes for as long as we could, And then it's just like now at a point where I had like 30 kids in one of my 8 to 12-year-old classes. We do 8 to 12-year-olds. We have 3 different sections on 4 different days. So it's like there's literally 3 different groups. 8 to 12-year-olds are about to add a 4th, and it's just like, oh man, So now but we do this, and we're doing this with our profits from when we sell the building. We're putting them all back into the business, and we've done that for years. And that's why I think that we continue to do well and grow, because we just bought $2,000 worth of new mats. It's just like, we need some new mats over here. You guys want new mats, right? Yeah. Okay, great. Here you go. That's for you.
But has the city made it easy for you?
No, dude. I'm telling you right now, the amount of stress involved over the last year, because it's been a year we've been trying to build, and we paid the architectural designs, we paid the engineering fees, and it's like you enter into a new phase of the construction, and then they're like, I know we're just telling you about this for the first time, but you're gonna need to pay this. Oh, you can't do it that way. Can't put it there. You know, and it's just like, it's my property. And it's in a residential area that they're trying to move to commercial over the next 10 to 30 years.
Yes.
And they're spending all the taxpayer dollars on making the area around us nice, but not the area, like, it's just like, it's the tech agenda. They're pushing the tech's agenda. And it's because they're trying to connect that what is it, Glenwood. The thing is tax dollars were appropriated for East Street, and we're on East Street, and they still have part of our road, dirt road. There's like a little tiny segment that's just like, they're like, oh, it's back in there, we'll worry about it later. Because I think that they're like, the perception is like, oh, they're going to build, they'll just put those sidewalks and drainage, and we'll just put this over here for tech, but not this small business. And I'm offended by that.
Well, and you should be. And here's the and I don't know all of the specifics of your situation, but I do know the specifics of several small businesses here in town who they passed an ordinance, the city council did, and I know we've kind of jumped around, but it all comes back to one thing. Our city officials, for the most part, are well, on the record, morons. The issue is that they passed an ordinance recently that if you got a special use permit denied, you had to wait another 6 months to reapply, which was actually on the books, I think, but it was just now
Sean
being
Harris told me
reinforced.
that.
It was just now going to be enforced. What a ludicrous thing to do. What an absolutely ludicrous thing to do. You are wanting to say that we encourage small business, but no, you don't. These are the same people who sued frickin' Walmart. Are you kidding me?
How do you think that ties into the cannabis dispensary issue?
It's two separate things.
Well, I mean, they had I know you guys kind of riffed on that with Nathan and Kristen, right? You guys talked about the cannabis issue a little bit, but that's been another. It's man, there's a lot of anxieties. We're having Nazi marches where there's a Holocaust denial scandal at our university. We got the casino thing. The cannabis, and that was about to be a state. Just like basically these communities wanting to violate state law or just straight up make it hard for people who contribute. Like my wife and I contribute to this community big time.
Yes.
And
you do.
Like I have just totally shifted my approach with it's like, okay, I'm done complaining. I'm not in a hurry anymore. And you're going to live with me for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
And you know what? I have a background in political science, and I'm prepping this American government course, and I think I'm going to use you as a case study.
That's the best thing I've heard.
I mean, Hausnick and I are sitting down, and that's another thing. These people aren't using any of the resources in the community, our political local leaders. They aren't networking with any of the political scientists, pre-law, any professors at Tech who
Chris
could give them...
is such a
He's a
freaking
boss.
resource.
He's great.
And he should be used in more all the time. He is literally representing us on statewide television all the time. I've not seen him one time be invited to anything, and he should be.
I use he goes on that AETN show.
Yeah.
And I teach Arkansas history now. And I use AETN resources in my Arkansas history class, my U.S. history class. They put out some great stuff like across the years, like their database of content. And he does. He goes on there all the time. And I think that we should be, it's like those are the ways I would like, and I don't know if there's any conflicts of interest, but those are the ways I would like to be networking with Tech, not just using tax dollars to build more roads to go in and out of their institution. I mean, I'm an alumni there, and I feel that way. I got my undergrad and my master's, and most of my mentors in life work there, retired from there, or something. Like I like Arkansas Tech.
Same. It all comes back to one thing for me, and the question is, what is the end goal of our leaders? What is their vision? When we did the debate back in November with the three mayoral candidates, I asked that question. And I specifically asked it for an economic development plan, and Richard Harris had no economic development plan. And so I asked again in January, and I asked again in March, and there's still none. The problem with...
But we're going to go to Nashville, okay? We're
Right.
going to pay for the architects who get all the business. We're going
Right.
to pay for them to go to Nashville, too. And we're going to see what their economics are
Well,
looking like.
but Franklin, Tennessee is a suburb of Nashville. We are not a suburb of anything.
I know,
we
dude.
Are,
That's not a good comparison. I'm going to Nashville this
No.
weekend. I've been twice in the last year, and I don't. They could have found a better case study.
Yeah.
And then and they're also wanting to, like, the repeated thing that came up in my conversation. Well, Brian, if you lived in Fayetteville, I'm like, but I don't, dude. And, like, I get that you want to pass off that El Paso should be the new Dixon Street and everything, and carry out Tech's agenda on that as well, because they're the people that came up with that idea. Dr. Bowen is the first person I heard talk about that when I was still on campus, is that there wasn't enough student life, and that there was the student life intermingling with the community needed to be more. Life needed to pour down El Paso and into downtown Russellville. And that's what got us caught up in all this. Because Tech petitioned to rezone, did not contact a single property owner or follow local law on notifications in numerous ways. And we had no idea our property had even been rezoned.
So, and this is where it all comes back to, what's your vision? Are you okay with, Ryan Dunaway, I don't know if you know Ryan, he had some trouble, I believe, trying to open a gaming store recently for the same reasons. And he's a good guy who just wanted to open a small business. There are people all over town who are incredible resources, who care deeply about this community. And whether you agree with them politically or not, Richard Harris is never going to like me. I'm fine with that. That's fine. There's several people on the city council who would really like to see me get hit by a bus.
That's the thing, like, I'm never going to forget the lack of willingness. There was the facade of, we're going to get a meeting, we're going to try and help you, but I left that meeting feeling not helped.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I left that meeting and still did not know what we were going to do. Luckily, people plugged into our issue were able to kind of network us with somebody who, like, one person who owned a building in this town could work for us to move to. But we never inquired about it because it was too expensive. It was listed too high. And then when we did inquire, when we all got networked up, it was more like, for you guys, it'll be way lower than that.
Right.
Because of your issues and because I support what you're doing, and also because I moved a couple years ago and I need to get rid of that thing.
Right.
So
it turned out
it's a win-win-win,
But it can't be like that. And so let me address something, if you don't mind. I'm going to use this podcast to just say a few things that just so desperately need to be said. The people of Russellville, the people of Pope County deserve better than what they have gotten.
Agreed.
100% deserve better. They deserve more than the political bickering and backbiting that's cost the city $12 million. They deserve more than the moralistic argument that we think poor people are too stupid to know what to do with their money, so we're going to say no to everything. They deserve better than a lack of an economic development vision, and they deserve more than this idea that somehow things will be better if things stay the same. And it is frustrating. When I was a reporter, I had a very difficult time, which is why I'm not in journalism anymore.
I was gonna ask you about that.
I had a very difficult time not getting angry.
Didn't you have a heart attack or something, dude?
I had a very close call back in 2016.
Was it related to all that?
No, it was not. It was high blood pressure, but I went back into the hospital for a hypertension episode sometime last year.
That's probably what I saw. Yeah.
Yeah. It did relate to that. It's you look at this thing, and I get emotional talking about it. I'll give you an example why. There is a family in our circle that you'd kind of know who they are. The father is working 2 jobs. Mom is working a job. 3 kids, fairly decent house. And they are struggling every single month. Guy's got a degree. She's got a degree. And the officials here tout the booming economy of 97% unemployment. Well, that's great, except for the fact that there are no higher paying jobs except for the higher ups of industry, a little bit in hospitals and some at the university. Where else are you going to go to use your education?
You're gonna have to find a job and move.
You have to move.
And
I don't want to lose these people.
That's the thing too. Is like I know a ton of people. It's not as easy as finding a job and moving. I know a ton of people that have PhDs, and like I am very fortunate that I have a master's degree, and I landed a full-time teaching position at a college, salaried with benefits, retirement, whole nine. I know a lot of people with PhDs who are not that fortunate.
Yeah.
That are adjuncting courses at $3,000 a whack, doing 3 or 4, teaching almost a full-time load, but just bringing down about 12 G's a year, probably working a second job, making minimum wage or in the neighborhood. And it just, man, that is, I mean,
and that's here.
That's here.
That's local.
And I mean, that's a lot of the stuff to kind of shift to. Did you watch Bernie Sanders on Joe Rogan?
I did not.
It's great. It's only an hour.
I like Joe Rogan.
I do too, and it's a worthy watch. And I've been back and forth on Bernie several times, but where Bernie hits at home for me is like that dude is in touch with my plight. Mm-hmm. You know, and he says things that I don't agree with, like everyone deserves a job. And I'm like, dude, I know a ton of people that don't deserve a job.
Agreed.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm a manager. I got a couple.
Yeah. So whether you like his politics or not, or you like democratic socialism or not, or what he is commenting on when it comes to education and when it comes to student loans and when it comes to people being stuck in poverty because of the interrelation of those and because the man, you know why I have a master's degree? Because I realized almost through my undergraduate that I didn't want to teach high school and that I was going to be unemployed unless I could get a potential college teaching. And then I was just going to adjunct to pay back my student loans. But in the midst of adjunct, and they offered me a full-time position, I was like, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's not because full-time, I mean, I work significantly less than 40 hours a week. Mm-hmm. So it's like today, like we started podcasting at, 2 o'clock?
Yeah.
I've been home for about an hour. So it's just like I already did my whole time there today, taught 3 classes. But... man, I empathize with those people. And, like, I'll tell the story all the time. When I realized I wasn't destitute anymore, it made me cry. Like, Cora was like, hey, we got, like, a few $1,000s in our bank account. And our bills are paid. Like, this is our checking account here. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, wow, that's awesome. And like then there was like we were about to get paid again, and it was just like it was a really good time, mm-hmm. right? And she's like, we used to have 75 every month for years, and like I mean the whole time I was putting in that work to not have $75, and I was like, we find that's making it right. But I know a lot of people who are doing exactly what I did that cannot make it.
Yeah.
Or doing more, or they are just as skilled, but maybe they just have an associate's degree, or you just have a certificate. Oh, you're just really good at Photoshop, but you're not designer level. Like they don't have that big degree, so that's the excuse of them not getting the
right. And
the
it's
work.
Probably because they had to go to work early because they didn't have the money to help finish out their school, and they just never had the opportunity to go back. More than likely, and you see this all the time. And you can talk about it from the national perspective. I take everything back local. The idea that we still have people in our area who can't get this work or who have the work, actually. They actually have the work, but they can't get a more than a part-time job, or they don't have more than a minimum wage job. And now these same people who are saying, you know what, we want to help poor people, but we're not going to pay for anything to help them out. And by the way, we're going to oppose the casino resort, who's actually promising $13 minimum an hour, is the absolute form of hypocrisy for me. It's 100% hypocrisy because you either get to do one of two things. You either get to say, I'm going to support wage increases and make it a competitive marketplace because it's not necessarily all about just raising minimum wage. It's making the market competitive, which this casino resort's going to do in town. Or you get to say, we're going to start more nonprofits or open up government programs to help feed these people who cannot feed themselves despite the fact that they're working. And the great conservative argument that I love is, why don't these people have a job? They got two of them.
That is often the case.
They
I mean,
believe-
if I have, and I will
It's
say,
not
I don't
always the case.
consider any of my work jobs.
Right.
But that's a benefit. A lot of people are, but if I have two jobs, like,
I've got two jobs.
I mean, I'm only 32 years old, but it's like, dude, I'm grinding it out 12 hours a day minimum.
Yep.
And, I kind of like it that way, is another thing. Like, that's going to be how I fight back. It's just like I'm constantly grinding the gears of just whether that's, and it's things I'm passionate about, whether it's podcasting, cranking out content for the business, filming videos, teaching class, teaching history. It's like, here's the thing in the school of public opinion, like, I do use Russellville's case studies in all of my classes because, there's all my students. They know what I do.
That's kind of sad, though, to me.
I mean,
I
it
appreciate
is.
the fact that, but that's where we are. And it is exclusively because we have had this culture for so long of either not in my backyard or, as a guy who, kind of shifting gears but staying on the same lines, as a guy who is a Christian, I get so fed up with the quasi-Christian mentality of this area. And I will tell you what I mean by that. And saying this publicly is probably going to get me lynched, but,
No more than that Facebook status.
Well, and I stand by that, by the way.
Totally
stand by
I don't think any less of you. If anything, I tell people this a lot, unless it's Caleb Moore. Because dude, when I was in his office, he was talking major shit about the casino. So, and then he flipped, and I was like,
See you.
but usually I'm like, oh, you received more information about something that you didn't previously had, and you changed your mind, and I could see that. Like,
That's reasonable.
Like over time, people are like, this person, and it's like I've listened to some of those people defend themselves in interviews, and it's like, yes, I became more culturally sensitive. I developed more as a human being. I have more empathy. I was presented more information. I met this family. All of these things that went into their mind changing across time, and then they get, and look, like I want it to change across time, not like across a 7-day period,
Right.
But
and that's kind of what happened with me. Like, I have made a conscious effort to try to live a life that I think that, the God I believe in would be proud of. But at the same time, that subsection of people who claim that same belief
not my Jesus.
do not live out the life that it requires, and instead actually give more of a facade of what Jesus actually would probably be okay with. To me, the kind of Christianity that we have seen, not completely, but at the forefront, even in the entire country, but really as a microcosm, just say Polk County, the ones who mix up patriotism with evangelicalism, the ones that say that Trump and God are right in there together, they are killing evangelical Christianity. The ones who are mixing up their belief system of faith with their belief system of patriotism are the ones who are killing evangelical Christianity.
And I agree with this, yes.
And the ones who say that you have to be the ones who are not willing to bless people physically and literally, as opposed to telling them what they're doing wrong in their life, are the ones who are killing Christianity. Look, if you've got I try to take a look at the way that perception would be from somebody who does not believe the way that I do. I desperately try to do that. One of my very good friends is a Muslim. We have conversations about these things all the time. One of the biggest issues that I have is from a person who does not believe the way that I believe. I am embarrassed by the way that some of my Christian brethren portray themselves. The same ones that say, I am going to go to church this Sunday and I'm going to worship God. And then the very next Facebook status, they call somebody a Democrat or a Republican or, hey, those kids, this was my favorite one, from a Christian, said, you know what, those kids in cages, I wish their parents just wouldn't have come over and they wouldn't be there. They're still freaking kids and they're still in freaking cages. Man. And here's the problem. The people who don't believe the way that I believe are going to look at that and say, that's what you believe. The perception is everything. And that is the subsection of Christianity, for the most part, that has controlled this city. The people that have said, I'm going to mix my patriotism with my faith. I'm going to mix evangelical Christianity with what it is that I believe from a political standpoint. And if you don't believe the way that I do, or you don't agree with me politically, then guess what? You're going to hell. Screw you. Because facts are facts. And the fact is that we should have been taking care of people a long time ago, and we're not. We should have not have ever put nationalism and patriotism in the same vein as Christianity. And it all comes back to the cultural mindset of the officials of the city, the gatekeeper, if you will. Rick Harrell is a nice man. I've talked to him on occasion, but if I hear gatekeeper one more time, I'm going to lose it. What do you think you are? What do you think you're keeping the citizens of Russellville from? You're not keeping them from evil. You're keeping them in poverty. You're not keeping them from hurting themselves, or you're not keeping hurt from coming down on them. You are keeping them from the opportunity to be better under the guise of a faux morality that's not even truly Christian. And it drives me crazy. Rant over.
Drew, I need... look, I'm going to read from the book of 2 Samuel real quick. What did you think about that? Because back on the cannabis issue, we kind of are skipping around, but back to the moralistic argument,
right?
Just kind of picking up on what you just said. What did you think of Mayor Harris's when they did call the special meeting to approve the special use permit for the cannabis dispensary to open that they had been stopping for moralistic reasons? Mm-hmm. When he made his statement on that, it was more like, well, we're going to get sued if I don't do this. But the book of 2 Samuel says it is.
Well, the worst one was the first meeting that they had about that.
Recap that.
The first meeting, Mayor Harris abstained.
Okay, yes, I remember that.
It was a tied vote, and Harris abstained. Which, by the way, as a mayor, you can only vote in the affirmative to break the tie, or you have to abstain. So he wasn't skipping the vote; he was voting no. Here's the problem with the moralistic. I'll give you a great example. I wrote a commentary piece recently where I said, in order to make my mind up about how I felt about the casino, I took my faith out of the picture.
That's the status I was referencing a minute ago.
Okay.
Brent, I lost you at took my faith out of the picture.
Yeah, I heard that one a lot. Here's the reason why, though, and I think reasonable people can get this. Everything that I do in my life, the way that I raise my kid, the way that I'm a husband, the way that I treat people, comes from a biblical belief that you have to be a godly person to the people that you are around and that you have to love everyone. I truly 100% believe that. But if you are a government official, it is much more difficult to make your decisions based on your faith when you have the constituency to look after. And to me, where Richard Harris made a crucial mistake was he basically told the voters, I know more than you. My morality is superior to yours. And because my morality is superior to yours, I'm going to vote against this because you clearly don't know what you need to know.
He's our shepherd.
And to me, the problem with that is that, no, you do not, sir. Because if you did, then you would understand that we have to have this kind of economic development, or you need to come up with a better plan, or you need to get the Alliance and Paul Harville up and doing a little bit more than what they're doing, because if you don't, we are going to continue to have the same issues that we have had. And I had to take, the reason I took my faith out of that casino argument was because I saw a moral for and a moral against on both sides. If I said I am for the casino morally because I want people to have access to better options for employment, then I could also see that this is selling an addiction, which is not any different, by the way, than owning a tobacco store, not any different, by the way, than owning a liquor store, not any way, by the way, of owning a movie theater, because you're still throwing your money away, but I could at least see it. And because you can see the morality on both sides of it, I had to take the morality out of it. That, by the way, made me not a Christian. No, I have to separate those two at some point, because if you are going to serve the community, then the way that you serve the community in a godly way is to be Christ-like, not to be Christ. And there is a very big difference.
What do you think Harris's future is going to look like? I know people definitely aren't in softening on, and just my dealings with him, I don't have a favorable opinion. I would say his PR is a disaster. There was a group kind of calling for his resignation. There's multiple people calling for his resignation.
Oh, yeah.
And people wanting distance from that and this, that, and the other. Let's hit on some of that real quick. So,
sure.
Here's one thing that I've had a recent issue with. So, somewhat recently, when I guess we started maybe talking about doing this podcast, there was a group on social media that basically what they were saying is like, hey, we're for the casino, and whatever that takes, we're going to push that. And by the way, we're going to field a bunch of candidates too while we're at it. Which that was an eyebrow raiser for me. I was like, because they were actively trying to distance themselves from other groups in the community who were campaigning for political correctness, if that's how you want to describe it. So I saw some contradictions there, and I was like, I get this two different groups or whatever, two different people and viewpoints on what the issues are. But then I saw one group start to shift over here to try and get in the political spectrum and then asked for $25,000, saying they were a nonprofit. And I honestly felt like, I was just asking for accountability, and I felt like they passed that off as me attacking them.
I know what you're referencing. I would say this. I think there's a lot of groups out there right now who are trying to do something. And anytime you are doing something that you've never done before, you make some missteps. I think that was a misstep. I don't think it was done egregiously. And I've not spoken to them about it. So I don't know the backstory. I don't know why they ask about that. And I can't speak from an intelligent perspective on it. I saw what you said. The only thing that I can say is that I think a lot of times when people are angry or fed up or wanting some change, they make some missteps when they get involved. And I thought, as I said, I thought that was a misstep. As far as Harris's future, I hope he resigns.
What do you think the likelihood of that happening is without there being groups calling for his resignation?
There will be groups calling for his resignation.
Without getting into all that, there has been a little less out in the open people calling, and then it seems that the people with the larger voice are like, oh, we don't want anything to do with that. Well, by the way, we want to interject into the political spectrum right now.
Right. You want to do the fun thing. You don't want to do the dirty thing. And you're referencing the recall, I believe. And
yes,
let's talk about the recall. I was involved. I thought some of the things that were posted by some people who had access to that and who were posting got ridiculously out of hand. It's never okay to attack personally, and it's never okay to attack family. That's never all right. However, that being said, there is a group of people out there who, if you disagree, they will do what they can to make your life somewhat miserable. And so you have to wade the waters of taking care of your family and also trying to make a difference. And I think that's part of the reason why the recall backed off a little bit, was because things were getting just a hair too personal. The reason for the recall is not because Richard Harris is a bad person that I know of. I mean, he may be. I don't think so. He's always been very cordial to me. But as a mayor, he's a disaster. He is an absolute, total, unmitigated disaster. And the support pieces that he has around him are flipping every other day. You don't have any kind of structure. You don't have any kind of vision, and you don't know where you're going next. You want to talk about a 10-year plan? What's your 10-minute plan? You know, we want to talk about the things of the city. Now, I will give Richard Harris this. I will give him this. He inherited a situation that most mayors do not walk into.
Granted.
And I will give him the fact that pretty much the first 8 months that he has been mayor, he's not really had the luxury of getting to be mayor. But you are not the mayor of a smaller town. You are the mayor of a 30, 40,000 person population with 100,000 people who are walking through there every single day doing business, making transactions. You are the CEO of a big spot. So it's not going to be easy. And for somebody like Richard, whose political career has been mired a little bit in non-movement and committees, he was not prepared. Now, I don't know this for sure, but I don't know that Richard thought he was going to win. I thought Richard...
Do you think it was his idea to run?
No.
The next
Lord,
thing?
no. Absolutely not. And I will never understand why that contingent selected Richard to go. I mean, he's well-spoken and probably the easiest as far as electability. He looks like a mayor. He presents himself like a mayor. He speaks like one. He just doesn't do like one. I mean, he does like a bad one. And once again, I'm going to say disparaging things about the job that Richard Harris has done. It doesn't mean that I'm disparaging the man. So I want to make that distinction.
It's not a personal attack.
Absolutely not. And it never will be. It never will be for me. Where it gets personal is his supporters who do some things to people here in town that would threaten their livelihood, people who are very close to me. And that is where it crosses the line. Do I think Richard had anything to do with that? Absolutely not. I don't think you could get away with that, and I certainly don't think that he would do that. But that does speak to the level of the depth of our politics here in the city. You can't talk about issues without talking about character. You can't talk about trying to move forward without somebody getting so pissed off that they're going to call you a name, and then once you get called a name, then everything goes into this character assassination. And so Monday night, I called the city council a group of puppets and clowns. And guess what? That right there got more attention than anything else I have said from a commentary perspective, because somebody had to literally call out a name before anybody would pay attention. You can't get anywhere with nicety in the depth of our politics anymore, and that is so sad. Now, by the way, Brian, for your record here, I've spoken to a couple of the members of the council since then. They laughed at it. They laughed it off. They understand this game, okay? The game is politics, and you're trying to win. And so they get it. Now, some of them, they got butthurt about it, and get over it. It is what it is. But I stand by it. It was a puppet show Monday night, and Richard Harris was the chief puppet.
I just kind of was like, now you want to come grovel at the table.
That's
how I interpret it.
And what did you get out of it? What did you get? The chance that maybe you get to annex, but what did you come away with? Nothing. Yeah.
It's disparaging, man. It's, social and political anxieties. And, man, I think it's important to just state that this is not just us either that's going through this. Communities all over the United States are experiencing within our state, out of state. There are a lot of social anxieties right now, and I think that those definitely aren't adding to they are adding to this issue for our constituents. It's like in the background of just the things we've talked about today, you also have continued shootings. You also have more division. We're going into an election, and it's just I don't ever remember it being like it is now. It's just like we just keep climbing the social anxiety ladder.
Well, because you don't know how to talk about policy and you don't know how to talk about ideas. It used to be in at least in national politics, you had the same end goal. Let's say healthcare. We want to make sure that everybody has broader access to healthcare, okay? And that was the end goal for both the Democrats and the Republicans. The disagreement came in how to get there. Well, now it's debatable whether or not the Democrats and the Republicans are even hoping that people have more access to health care. And so that is here's another great example. Used to, you would say hate groups are bad, okay? That's what you would say. And we would have a discussion about how to eradicate mass shootings and how to eradicate hate groups. Now we can't even get our leaders to say that these people are bad people. Now we can't even get a conversation going. The gun control conversation is a perfect example of what is wrong with this country. Because you cannot talk about people who have been shot to death without somebody saying, well, the gun didn't pull the trigger. I don't give a flying damn who pulled the trigger. I want it to stop. And if we can't have that conversation, then we are screwed.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the same way. I tell people all the time, like, I'm an enhanced concealed carry holder, and I am pro there being some reform. Like, and
I think most people would be.
Yeah, I mean, we're past the point of me and addressing, like, I've uploaded the audio feed, and there is a version audio feed on YouTube, but I just recently had a colleague of mine, Dr. Dana Thomason, on. We hit on a lot of these same anxieties. And it's just, what do you do? What is the answer to curbing this angst of do we focus on mental health overhaul? Do you focus on education of people that are getting firearms, like mandated annual time at the range or stuff? Those are things that I'm like and too, it's like some guns I would be like, I mean, dude, I'm going to tell you something right now. You just go ahead and bust through the door. You can get that shotgun over there in the corner.
Yep.
I don't need an AR.
No.
I will say,
but
I would like an AR for clearing the house at night if I ever had to do that. But that's going overboard. It's like the very simple reality is two guns next to my bed, and if you open that door when I'm sleeping at night and my wife is next to me in bed, I will shoot you.
Yeah.
And man,
and I agree with that. By the way, nothing wrong with that.
And as long as I can retain the right to be able to do that, and hopefully, I never have to. But the reality is in this climate, I might. And with the fact that we've not had any break-ins here, I had some stuff stolen when we lived in an apartment in Russellville. Cora had her Subaru broken into recently at Bonadilla. It's like. We had a member who, like a year and a half ago, their father in Michigan, somebody broke in, home invasion, killed the dad.
Oh, my Lord.
Yes. He was able to, is an elderly couple, like retirement age. They're beating up on both of them, and he is able to basically, I think there was 3 people breaking in, and he took out 2 of them, wounded another one, the wife survived. But it's like, man, that's super close to home. That guy was at the grand opening of my business. It's like, that's real. There's evil in the world, and it manifests in these ways. And it's like, I will fill you so full of bullets if you open my door. And I want to retain my right to be able to do that. And as long as you can, guarantee that I can protect this house, I'll be fine.
And I think right there is a grand example of being able to have the conversation and saying, hey, you know what? We both agree on that. I 100% agree with that. I think it is a ridiculous. I grew up in Yell County. You hunt. That's
me too.
what
Man, mine was
you
it was
do.
Hartman, Arkansas for me, right?
You know,
So
you hunt, you fish. I shot my first gun at 3. I mean, that's what you do. I have no problem with firearms, but I have a problem with the wrong people having firearms, and I have a real problem with access to firearms that is so freaking easy. We say, there's that meme on Instagram, Facebook. 3,000 people died on 9/11, and nobody tried to ban planes. But did you try to go through the TSA on September the 12th? Did you try to fly? You couldn't put toothpaste on a freaking plane for years because they were afraid it was going to be a bomb. That's the kind of that it's a ridiculous rhetoric that every time there's a mass shooting, somebody wants to take the guns when there are reasonable people who are saying, no, I don't care about taking your guns because I have guns. I want to keep guns too. The problem is that I don't want people to die anymore. But we can't even get to that point. It's just like in local politics. You can't even get to the point of having the conversation about the end goal. When I had the local rundown, I talked about the land of extremes all the time. And when you live in the land of extremes, it's one extreme rhetoric to the other extreme rhetoric, and the real truth is actually in the middle somewhere, but the left and the right's never going to get there. The first party that actually comes more centrist will be in power forever if they can do it.
if they're ever given a spot at the table, with that's a major problem I have.
Go John Kasich.
That's a major problem I have with how our debates and stuff are set up. Mm-hmm. We are a bipartisan party. This is you come to this party, it's two. Mm-hmm. Republicans and Democrats, and Gary Johnson, everybody else, you are not invited. Right?
God, I wish, Lord, Gary Johnson was my pick. For simply the reason that he wasn't Trump or Clinton, and that's the worst thing to say. That's true.
I felt the same way, but it's like that's the situation of what we were left with. Did you watch him when he came on Joe Rogan?
I didn't watch him when he came on Joe Rogan. I watch a lot of John Oliver. You watch John Oliver?
Not very much, but I have a little bit.
He is an uber liberal, and I disagree with a lot of what he says, but I find him hilarious.
You mean you consume material from the other side for the benefit of you having more information about the overall picture?
I will give you I'll get back to that in a second. That idea is interesting because I typically, if I were to say I lean one way or the other, I probably lean more left. But when I'm driving, I will listen to Ben Shapiro.
I listen to. I am not conservative, but I listen to Ben Shapiro.
And when I pulled up in your driveway to do this podcast, I had Rush Limbaugh on because at least now I've got an idea of what everybody's thinking. And then you can kind of formulate your opinion because it's amazing to me. Just today, I heard that the economy is doing better than it ever has. And that it is a booming economy because Rush Limbaugh said so. Then I get a text on my phone while we're doing the podcast that the Dow just plunged to 800 points. And so I'm certain that tonight on MSNBC or CNN that we're about to go into a great recession. And then tomorrow Rush Limbaugh is going to say, no, we're not going into a recession. It's all going to be. And you know what? I can still tie that back locally. It's always going to be misinformation. You've got to dig for the truth
Speculation,
yourself.
Man.
It's always going to be rumors. Everybody's got a source. If you want to know the greatest journalists in the world, go to an Arkansas Razorback football fan forum when there's a coaching search. Everybody has a source. It's the same kind of a thing in Russellville right now. Well, I heard.
I know that we spent the whole first 25 minutes of the podcast. Well, a couple of sources. Two people told me this. I read this on this page,
and you don't know where it goes. You don't know where it comes from, and you just that game of telephone when you were a kid, and it's kind of like that. And that's how this casino thing got out of control. That's how this medical marijuana thing got out of control. It's crazy.
I agree, man. I'm telling Corey right now she's got to take her doctor training. Gracie in there barking on the podcast. So we recently got. Do you have dogs?
I've got one.
We had one. He was an only child, and he was very sad because the cats don't like him. He's kind of big, and he's very excited. So we got him a friend. Their names are Hickson and Gracie, after Hickson and Gracie. But she is a brat, a total brat, dude. That's her. So
We've got Opie. He was a rescue, and he was fine. We've never had any problems with Opie. He's always been great. Jamie had him, and then he adopted me. But when we moved into our new house, we live in a farmhouse, and so, fun fact, I fear two things in life, public speaking and mice. And so we got a cat to alleviate the mouse problem.
cats and dogs.
That cat is the meanest cat to that dog I've ever seen. Now, they've started to finally get along, but for the first 2 months or so, that cat would absolutely terrorize Opie. Like, terrorize him. And all Opie would do, and Opie's, I don't know, he's, for the folks who are listening to this, he's about, I don't know, a foot tall. I mean, he's a little dog. And the cat would just, the cat would ride him. He would jump on his back, and he would claw in, and Opie couldn't get him off until he hit the floor.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, yeah, I understand.
Cats and dogs, yeah. That now,
Democrats
like, I
and
never
Republicans.
knew like, I'm like, oh, that's it. And then here's another thing too. I like remark on all the time. I'm like, guys, I realize your dog really might eat your homework. Like, if you left that here on this table, my dog might eat it.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very real thing.
Yeah, it actually has happened. Yeah.
I'm just like, I just always, because I never owned a dog, thought that was a BS excuse. But like, I empathize. Like, oh man, 2 years, and I think someone had my dog for 2 years. But like, a buddy of mine a while back told me, like, he's like, dude, my dog died yesterday, and I was like, oh, dude, pupper, man, I can't even think about that guy dying. Oh my god,
Right.
I mean, it just like the empathy for other people in that regard. I was just like, dude, I feel so. And before I would have been like, oh man, I'm sorry, I hate that for you.
I think that's a millennial thing. Honestly, I really do. Because the generation above us, my parents, I mean, they owned animals forever, and there were a few animals who had special places in their heart. But I mean, horse would die. All right, well, time to go bury the horse. Or a pig would die. Slaughtered pigs, slaughtered cows. I mean, but I'm not sure that that's not a generational thing, because if I know that I'm going to have to take a day off of work when Opie goes. Opie and I have this thing every single night where he watches TV in my chair with me while I drink my beverage, which is typically a Dr. Pepper. We'll eat some popcorn, and we'll watch Cops. Because we're old. I'm fine with that, but that's what we do. He'll sit right there between my feet on my recliner, and that's our night. And when the first night, when that's not possible, I will be a wreck. I'm tearing up thinking about it right now.
Dude,
I
I
can't
kind of did a second ago
can't
too,
deal.
man.
Cannot deal with that. And I think that's kind of a millennial thing, because it's like, I remember losing a dog when I was a kid, and dad was upset, but he wasn't like, well, okay. And
Same.
And I had an employee call in one time because their dog died. And I remember thinking, what a ridiculous thing to do.
Then you got a dog.
And then Opie came into my life, and I'm like, oh man, you should have taken a week. That is some real mess right there.
Every time Cora even thinks about, or like the topic is even broached, she starts crying.
Yeah.
Like I told my students today, I was making a joke about something. I don't remember what it was. So I shared a meme recently. I showed it to him. It was like one of my slides had like this guy's like, that looks like the never-ending story. I was like, check out this meme. And it was Trey pulling the horse out.
Oh,
and
Lord.
it was the long neck,
Yes.
little foot from, and it was
Oh.
like all those. But like when we sat down to watch The Lion King, the remake,
Yeah.
the live action or whatever, as soon as we sit down, Cora started crying. It's like, I just realized Mufasa's going to die.
So what's funny about that, Jamie and I took Adora to see the remake of Lion King this last weekend. And it's hilarious because we had a conversation in the car on the way, preparing Adora for, there's a sad moment in this movie. And I mean, Adora is 7. And so we just wanted to make sure that it's going to be sad. If you need Mama or Drew Boo, we're going to be right here. It's going to be fine. Okay. So the scene happens. And I look over at Jamie, and there's a single tear rolling down her cheek. And I wipe the tear off my eye, and I look at Adora, and she's like, I want to beat up Scar. Not crying at all. She's just mad.
It was way easier to deal with not being a cartoon for some reason.
Well, no, I still had trouble with it, but
I mean, it's sad,
Adora, Adora was like, "No, let's go fight him." And me and Jamie are holding hands, going, "I'm here for you, baby. I'm here." It's we're strange.
It was rough. Did you see the new Aladdin? Did you
I
like
haven't
that?
seen Aladdin yet. I don't know if I can get past no Robin Williams.
Oh, dude, I got past that. The Jafar character was kind of a letdown. But, man, I was pleasantly surprised. I liked it more than Lion King.
Oh, okay. Then I need to go check that out. Then.
Yeah, a lot of people, I'm the same way, dude. And you know what? Like, here's the sad part. Like, I ask, like, teenagers in, like, teen jiu-jitsu or MMA at the gym or, like, college students. I'm like, here's the test, guys. You ever seen Mrs. Doubtfire? And they're like, what? And I'm like, House of Pain, jump around. That goat needs to stop eating my begonias. Like, I just start going deep on it. And they're just like, what's this dude talk? I troll my students at the university all day long. It's a great byproduct of the job.
Speaking of trolling, try this, because I've started doing this at the restaurant. I will offer incentives to my employees if they can answer basic civics questions. I mean, and we're talking like very basic civics questions. The other night, I offered them a free cookie if they could tell me who the Secretary of State was.
Hey, I do a pre-test in my Arkansas history class. Who's the governor? What's the population? It's not all civics related, but it's
general knowledge, things you should, I mean, you may not know exactly, but you should have a general knowledge of, Arkansas was the 25th state. Am I correct on that?
Yes, 32nd most populous state in the nation.
You should know some of these things. I asked them who the governor was. One said Tom Cotton. I was just pleasantly surprised that they knew who Tom Cotton was. They didn't know who the vice president of the United States was. They didn't know. They couldn't tell. One told me that the vice president, and this is true, was Al Biden. So that's
kind of like Al Bundy, but Al Biden.
Right. He did sell shoes after inventing the internet. That's who Al Biden was. And I'm a little worried. I know that every generation worries about the generation coming up.
Maybe it's a sign of us getting older.
It's entirely possible because, the whole idea of my dog watching Cops with me and now talking about the next generation makes me believe that I'm turning into my father a little bit.
Hey, somebody's got to become the new gatekeepers. Actually, no, they don't. There's no such thing.
No,
okay?
There's not. And to put a nice bow on that, just to put a nice little bow on that, the only way we will ever see real change in this city is if it's going to come from people like us. And I don't mean that in a way to elevate ourselves. I mean that in a way of people who care and they don't care about the credit.
Do you think Nathan's going to get back into politics?
Boy, I hope so.
Are you going to get back into politics? Are you going to attempt to go for another run, unelected spot, elected official, justice of the peace, anything like that?
I am going to do everything in my power to do good for the community, whatever that takes. I don't have political aspirations beyond making sure that the people who are in the community are taken care of.
That's great. That's a great answer, dude.
And the reason why is because I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people who's living paycheck to paycheck. I'm one of those people who's trying to make it right now. I'm in that same grind you were in a few years ago. That's what I'm doing. And so if I think I can do more for the community by winning a seat, then yes, I'll 100% run. But if it doesn't look like I'll do that and I'll do more elsewhere, then you'll stay there. Whatever the community needs are at the time is where we'll end up.
I'll tell you what I think that we need more than anything is a new community development staff.
Yes.
Our director of community development and code enforcement has got to go.
An entire podcast could be done on the nepotism of the city of Russellville, and that's a great start right there.
Well, man, we should do this again sometime.
I would love to. This has been fun.
At the new gym, I am gearing. I'm getting my wish list. I'm going to set up a studio there, and that was a plan on when we expanded too. Is just to be able because I film every Sunday for an hour down there for our YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel with 500 videos for the gym. But just getting set up and balancing the gym filming with the podcast and starting to teach full time and getting a studio set up there and building all the sweet Harry Potter Legos over there.
Right, they're killer, man.
I got. We'll see. I've started the. That's the Hogwarts Express over there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not done yet.
All right, I'm going to disappoint you in that I've never read any of the Harry Potters.
I embarrassingly have not read the books. Corey read part of the first book to me, and not listened to the audiobooks, but and the first two movies are kind of childish.
I didn't see those either. So
Yeah, dude, I got all 8 of them, man. I would loan them to you, but Corin's not gonna have that. She likes to watch them all the time.
well, I'll get them streaming somewhere.
They were on Prime or something for a long time.
I'll be honest with you. It's going to be one of those things where I say, "Hey, man, I'll add that to the list," and there's no list. I'm probably not,
Dude. I fought it off for a long time. Cora's a huge fan, and just dude, she turned me into a Potterhead, man.
Potterhead, is that a thing?
Yeah,
Do people say that?
dude? I
That's
want
sick.
some butterbeer, dude. Like,
I've heard of butterbeer.
yeah,
I've heard of that.
I mean, Expelliarmus, dude. I cast spells and stuff sometimes. You know,
well, I mean, if you can, throw some money my way, do what you ever do to conjure that up. Thanks.
Oculus Repairant.
I appreciate that.
This fixes your eyeglasses, but
All right. Well,
I
can
joke.
see-
I joke
can
with
see
my
better now.
students about Harry Potter and stuff like that all the time because they're like, I like to just come across as they're like, I'm like, yes, I'm a, I've fought in a cage before and I have multiple black belts and I like building Legos. I'm what this guy Eddie Bravo would refer to as a nerd assassin.
Nerd assassin. That
So-
is outstanding.
Yeah.
That is outstanding. I prefer to be the lumberjack who will verbally eviscerate, but will also love.
Yes. Hey, there you go.
That's who I am as a person.
Yeah, like Oliver Platt's Paul Bunyan in A Tall Tale.
Yes, but probably more like a combination of Jed Bartlett from The West Wing and the guy from Moonshiners.
No, that's funny. That's funny. That reminds me. You ever seen which it's kind of we've talked about this, but you ever seen Pineapple Express?
Oh my Lord, I
Imagine
love that
those
movie.
two strands and those two strands got together,
Yes,
and then they had a strand.
yes,
Yes.
and the little the cross there. Yeah, I was
that's-
just talking about that movie. I freaking love that
It's
movie.
it's such a man. That's like I never got into like Cheech and Chong movies or anything
No.
like that. But I kind of felt like of like our generation or like because like right when I was getting out of high school that came out and it was just kind of sort of the cult movie.
Yes.
It is like Animal House or Blues Brothers, something like it's along those lines. But it is definitely. I run into people that are like 40-year-old moms and they quote that movie, and I'm just like, what?
Even more underground than I think Pineapple Express is Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Oh, that's an excellent one. Yeah.
Killer, same kind of a deal.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
I love Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Good, dude.
You can't-
Do less.
It's so good. And Scott Pilgrim, that's one of those movies that I can watch anytime. And if it's on or I just scroll through, I'm going to watch. We graduated, I think, about the same time. And so it's
06 is when I got out.
05.
Yeah,
So,
actually, I was the age to get out at 05, but I was homeschooled till 8th grade, so I got held back a grade when I transitioned to public school.
is that why you fought in a cage?
No.
Okay, cool.
No, I actually did not get into training and doing everything I do now until right after I graduated high school.
Nice.
So that's just like, and then by 2009, the gym I was training at moved to Northwest Arkansas. So then I just kind of started doing my own thing and cross training with them and everybody else that's in our affiliation and stuff. And now we own one of the biggest gyms in the state. So
See? Isn't it? Life Unraveled.
that's the guy that helped me pick the name for my gym, one of my best friends. I'm going to see him Saturday. He helped me come up with the name for the podcast too. Helped me come up with the idea for the logo. This dude's like, anytime I've ever gone to him, it was in my wedding, just been like, dude, I'm trying to come up with this, man. This is kind of my idea. He's like, dude, bam, there you go. He's always got good ideas. Mike Page, shout out to him on the podcast.
Whoop, whoop. Attaboy.
Well, dude, let's go ahead and wrap it up. And, as there are pertinent issues, always, if you ever want to come sit down and talk, anybody, there's a lot of people, and I don't just ask everybody to come back on. There's a lot of people. I'm just like, yeah, dude, I'm always down to, that's why I do this. Like,
Right.
is having conversations that I'm like, man, imagine that I would have recorded that.
Right.
Or do this good conversations. And I mean, I may never even re-listen to them, but just getting the content out there and spreading the awareness. And I like that more people are doing that. So I dig that Nathan's doing it and Kristen are doing that, and that's
And
raising awareness.
I'll be on their show tonight, so check out Sass and the Beard.
All right, man. Right on. I just got a post from Unregressible.
No.
Okay.
Cheap plug.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later.
That's it, man.